Okay, so one of the things with inventory, I'm not a huge Walmart fan. One of the things that Walmart did very well when they went into business is they set up their warehouses across the United States. Logistically, fantastic. And they were just planned out where they could get to their stores in such a fashion that nobody else had done that before. And so that's how they were able to cut prices from the very beginning, is they had set up their logistics chain so well.
Just like where their warehouses
Where their warehouses were placed based on where they were going to put stores. And they cut down on their shipping.
Gotcha.
And nobody had really done that when Walmart, because Walmart started in Arkansas, just a small store in Arkansas. And then they got bigger in Arkansas. And then when they exploded, what they did is they set up their warehouses across the United States so that they could ship and receive without having to like travel from Arkansas.
Gotcha.
And other stores just didn't do that well. They did a lot of things good. They do a lot of things not so good, but they do a lot of things good. But to be good at all these things is you're going to find a great job. And I don't mean, you're just the plant manager or warehouse manager of Home Depot. I'm talking big, gigantic warehouses where you have to have the right amount of quantity. What do I mean by that? What's wrong with having too much of something? You what? Yeah, what happens if you don't sell it, right? What else is a disadvantage of having too much? Space. If you have too much, you got to have the space to have it. So therefore, you're paying for space for something that you don't not need. All right? And then so you got to sell it. You're paying for space on something you don't necessarily need. What else? You could have a price problem. And then what happens if it goes out of, it's outdated, people don't want it anymore, right? So you got all those problems. You have to have the right amount of quantity, but if you don't have enough, you also have a problem. All right, now you work with the salespeople, the people that work with us. This is not just inventory management decisions. You work with the salespeople, but at the same time, the salespeople aren't the ones that are sitting there saying, they're saying I need 3, and someone else is saying I need 4, and someone else is saying I need 10. Well, when they come to you, they want it. They don't want you to be ordering it. They want you to have it. It's kind of like Black Friday is coming up, which is one of the texts I responded back to my husband saying, do you want to get this now, or do you want to wait till Black Friday? And his response was, I'm not going to the store on Black Friday. And I'm like, I'm not either, but I'd buy online on Black Friday. And so you got to make sure you have exactly enough on those dates, but not too much, because then it's over demand, right? And then people don't get it. So what about quality? What happens if Walmart's quality just all of a sudden jumped? Yeah, up. Can't go too far down. What happened if it jumped up? More people will be buying, but what then would happen to their price? Their price would go up. And then they would start having trouble with people not buying, right? Because Walmart's known as a discount store. So you got to stay in the price range where you're at. Walmart is not known for high-priced, luxurious items. They're known as a place where you could go get the stuff you need. You're not expecting something that you buy at Walmart to last for 20 years. You're expecting it to do whatever you want it to do now, right? All right, but if you buy really crappy stuff from anywhere, are you going to go, even Walmart, you don't expect it to, you go and buy, I'm trying to think of something we bought for my son. You go and buy a fridge or you go and buy a microwave. Do you expect it to break right away? No. Doesn't matter where you buy that, right? So if things you buy aren't good enough, are you going to keep going back? No. So you got to balance the quality with the quantity. And then the last one is the cost of the warehouse. Not the cost of the item, the cost of the warehouse. You got to minimize the cost of acquiring and carrying the inventory. How big does the place have to be? How many people are you working in the place? All those decisions have to be done by inventory management. And one of the best examples I have, and I think I've already told you guys, my husband used to work for Schnuck, so full disclosure, right, that's an example. But about 4 years ago, well, way before that, Schnucks made the decision to close down one of their warehouses. And it was a big controversial decision because it was a union warehouse, and they decided to outsource that warehouse. And it caused a lot of problems. There was a lot of boycotts and things like that. But when they opened the new warehouse with the third party, they did it in the summertime. The third party was significantly cheaper, and the workers got paid significantly less. Well, the workers didn't know how to load the trucks. They didn't know how to drive the trucks. They were backing into the new warehouse and damaging it. They were backing into the stores and damaging it. They didn't have enough fresh produce and meats at the new warehouse. They couldn't get them delivered to the stores, and it was around 4th of July. And it was a big deal that kept hitting the TVs because it was 4th of July and Schnucks did not have did not have much fresh produce and meats in the stores. And they would just keep showing this on the news at night, how there was no meat and fresh produce in the stores. And they kept showing how it was because of this new warehouse and this new third party that Schnucks was going through. Well, they cut so much in cost of acquiring and carrying their goods that it backfired on them. And they ended up cutting ties with this third party and going with a different third party. One that cost a little bit more, and it was a big deal for them because they ended up having to sue for breach of contract and all this stuff with that other company. And I was like, oh man, that works perfect in class as an example. So you can cut too many corners. So you got to be really careful. And that cost Schnucks a lot of money. And all of us kept saying when they did it, why in the world would you switch warehouses 3 weeks before the 4th of July? I mean, not only did they suffer publicity problems because they were being boycotted and all that, and then they had all this damage to their warehouses, and then they had the boycotts, but then they lost all the sales because they didn't have anything in the stores for the 4th of July. So it was not good for them. All right, so the different types of inventory. We are on the left. What we are doing in this class is just buying and selling, and we have merchandise inventory. For those of you that will be taking managerial, which I highly suggest all of you just take it next. A couple of you guys were going into accounting, you're going to take it next, or should regardless. Those of you guys going into business, you got to take it, so just take it next and get it out of the way. It's kind of like taking your math classes, all right? You take one, you take the other, you get them done, then you check them off your list. Your managerial class will be manufacturing, raw goods, produce, finished goods, and get them out. And you have something in the middle called work in progress. Your registration opens next week, I think. And so if you have any questions, right now we're not offering a class here because unless all 8 of you stood up and said, yes, I'm going to take it here, the class wouldn't make. Usually about 60% of the people in this class take it, and that's only going to be 6 of you, if that, maybe 5.
That's the merchandise class?
It's called managerial accounting,
okay.
114. So if all 8 of you guys said, yes, we're going to take it, I might be able to convince them to put it on the schedule. But that usually doesn't happen. Last year I had 10 and 8 took it. And it barely squeaked by. So it's not going to squeak by with 6. So they didn't put it on the schedule. So assuming there isn't one, I can definitely talk to you about which ones would work for most of you guys at Merrimack. And because there's a regular face-to-face, and then there's a hybrid face-to-face, which meets once a week. Like this, yeah. But it's officially one that meets once a week like this. And he does a lot what I do, except for he's even more official in the sense that since it's an official hybrid, he has videos online. He doesn't do the Collaborate, even though most of you don't do that. There's only a couple of you guys that have been on the Collaborate with me. He has videos that are out there. And I actually have the videos. I just haven't they're out there. I don't think you guys have used them, but he has videos out there that supplement. All right.
So you have to have this class as a prerequisite.
Yeah, you had to have this one to take 114. Yeah. All right, so how to report cost of goods sold. We talked about this already. Inventory goes on the balance sheet, and cost of goods sold goes on the income statement. And there's our formula, which is right here, which is leading me right into. And we already talked about if we're doing periodic, we have to switch ending inventory and cost of goods sold. For the most part, what we're going to be doing is periodic, but we always calculate cost of goods sold and then plug to get ending inventory. And then we've kind of done this already. This is just showing how we did that in Chapter 6. We did that one problem in class where we had to plug the numbers to find out what cost of goods sold was or what ending inventory was or what net sales was. So for your exam, remember you can have a note card for the exam. Yes, you can do front and back of the note card. Use a normal note card, okay? Don't come in here with a note card that looks like this. There's only 8 of you. I'm going to punch you. Okay, use a normal note card. I recommend you all put that on there. in case you can't memorize it, but I would recommend you all put that on it.
What is 2000
I'm shooting for Monday. Unless at the end of today you guys look at me like I'm crazy.
Okay.
And then we can talk about Wednesday.
Wait, what's the, it's cost of, what's the?
Beginning
gas?
inventory plus purchases equals cost of goods available for sale.
Okay.
That's the most you can sell. Minus cost of goods sold, because you ending inventory.
And that's for periodic.
Well, this is, I mean, it doesn't matter. This right here is perpetual. If you flip these two around, then it's periodic. Ending inventory is what you know for periodic, so you flip them around. Okay, so let me erase this. So I listed one of the inventory methods, and I think you guys named two of the other ones, correct? What are two of my other inventory methods? You gave me the initials, right? What were they? Remember the initials? We wrote them on the board. It was the answer to one of the questions. No. Specific ID,
FIFO.
FIFO, and LIFO. Yes. All right. So we got FIFO and LIFO. First in is first out. LIFO is last in, last out. So what's the fourth one?
Weighted it.
Weighted average, yep. A weighted average is the only one that has a formula. Does anybody know what that is?
It's gonna be a stupid question, but is LIFO last in, first out?
Yes, it is. I just can't write. All right, thanks. Thought you knew my formula.
Isn't it cost of goods sold over average?
Yep. So cost of goods sold or total cost. So total cost or cost of goods available for sale over total units. And that's going to give us the average. All right, so total cost, cost of goods available for sale over total units. And that's going to give you your weighted. It is not the number of units 6 plus 8 plus 4 divided by 3. All right, that just gives you average. This is a weighted average. So it lists all of them. Fun. All right, so let's go through. This is a very, very easy example because there's only 3 units. All right, so it's pretty easy to cut through them. Now, one of the things I suggest you do every time, no matter how easy it is you set it up like this. I have 1 unit at $70 and you multiply it out. I have 1 unit at $75, multiply it out. And I have 1 unit at $95 and multiply it out. So I have 3 units at $240. So I took out all my purchases and I multiplied them out, and then I totaled up my number of units. Now the first thing it tells us about specific ID. Specific ID is always going to be your easiest one, so don't make it hard. It is always going to say something just like this. The items sold were identified as the $70 one and the $95 one. So those were the 2 items we sold. So we sold the $70 one and the $95 one. So that means my cost of goods sold was $165. I don't like that pen. Let's try and use a different color. All right, so that's easy. Now this problem's really easy because if we only had 3 items and we sold 2, that means pretty much our ending inventory is 75 because that's the only item we have left. But the way you can figure it out is you take your cost of goods sold and you subtract it from your cost of goods available for sale, and you get 75. That's what we have here. Cost of goods available for sale, 240. Cost of goods sold, 165, gives us 75.
Why didn't you do like 70 and 75?
Because it told me right here that the 2 items that were sold, 775. All right, so now if we use first in, first out, which one was the first one we purchased? 7. All right, but we need another one, so the second one we purchased was 75. So our cost of goods sold is 145 bucks. It leaves me one item left. The item left was 95 bucks. Okay. Now, again, I got that because there's only one item left, so it's easy to figure that one out. Last in, first out means we start at the bottom. Yes?
So specific ID is like the highest one you bought and the lowest one? No?
It's just whichever ones they tell you. They went in and said, I'm going to sell this one, and I'm going to sell this one, and then they knew exactly how much it cost.
Okay, so it tells you.
Yeah, and it's normally not used in an example like this where there's such low dollar items, but they're doing it because it's a problem. Okay, so last in, first out, where are we going to start? Last one. So we're going to sell the $95 one, and then we're going to sell the $75 one. So we're going to be at $170, and we're going to have the $70 one left. So then what are we going to do for weighted average?
Take the cost of all three together.
Okay, so that's why you set it up like this. We're going to take the total cost, 240, and we're going to divide it by the total number of units, 3. So the cost is 80. We sold 2 units, which means the cost is 160, and we have 1 unit left, which is 80. Now the nice thing about weighted average is you won't be able to tell for sure you did it exactly right, but it should always fall between these two. So this number 160 is between these two, 80 is between those two. Now there's a third thing you could get, and that's the gross profit. Sales minus cost of goods sold. All right, our sales were, they sold 2 units at 125. So our sales were 250 bucks. So 250 minus 165 gives us, if I did my math right, 85 bucks. 250 minus 145 gives us 105. 250 minus 170 gives us 80. And 250 minus 160 gives us 90. So when you're doing a problem, you have to pay attention because it could ask for any of those 3 in a multiple choice. It could give you that information and say what's ending inventory. And so all they want is that number. Or it could say what's gross profit, or it could say what's cost of goods sold.
How did you get 250?
250, it said at the bottom, it says May 8th, 2 units were sold at 125 at the very top.
Yeah.
Okay, so here it just goes through what I just did. It shows you how the numbers came up with. All right, now it also talks about here the cost of goods sold. This is what we talked about at the very beginning when we were going over the quiz. That cost of goods sold is going to be the oldest with FIFO because you're selling the oldest item. It's going to have the newest inventory though. So the advantage of FIFO is you're always going to have the best idea how much your inventory is worth. So you know the replacement cost of your inventory because your inventory is valued at current day. All right, LIFO gives you the newest cost of goods sold, but it gives you the oldest balance sheet for the inventory, and then weighted average is in between that. So one of the things, before I go to this harder example, one of the things people that use LIFO for, if you have a higher cost of goods sold, what is that going to do to your gross profit? High cost of goods sold, what's that going to do to your gross profit?
Not as much.
It's not going to be as much. So if your gross profit's lower, your net income's lower. If your net income's lower, you're going to pay less in taxes. Right? So the choice of not LIFO sometimes is because you're going to pay less in taxes, but you're going to show a lot less in net income. All right, let's take a look at this example. So this is much bigger, has more items. We have 10 items at $7. And then we have 30 items at $8. And then we have 10 items at $10. All right, oops, 100. So the first thing you do is total up the items. And then it tells us that we sold 35. Right now we don't know what we sold those at, but we sold 35 items. So there's no specific ID on this one because we don't know any specific items. So we're going to start with FIFO. What are we going to do to figure out our cost of goods sold with FIFO? Take the first one with the 70. So we're going to take 10 units at $7, and it gives me 70. All right, what else are we going to do? Okay, so the next one is 30. So did we take all 30 units?
25.
We take 25 of them. Because we only need to get to 35. So the 10 and the 25 give us 35 units, which is how many we sold. We sold 35 units. So that's what we get to. So that's what we're going to take all 10 of those, and we're going to take 25 of those, which leaves us with 5. And if you look here, it says we have 15 units in ending inventory. So 5 and 10 would be our ending inventory. So if we come over here, then we got $270 is our cost of goods sold. Now we figured out that $410 was our cost of goods available for sale. If 270 is our cost of goods sold, then 140 is our ending inventory. Now that's the way I choose to do it. The other way you could figure out ending inventory is you could say 10 times 10 is 100 and 5 times 8 is 40. That also equals 140. So you could do that way as well. I think this is quicker, but you can do it either way. Does that make sense? A little bit?
Yeah.
All right, what are we going to do for LIFO?
First. Right?
First what?
Like, where you start from the bottom, work your way up.
All right, so we're going to start at the bottom. So we're going to take 10 units at $10. And obviously this needs to be unmarked off, okay? And then what are we going to do? How many more do we need again?
25.
25 again, right. So at least 5. So we take 25 at 8. So we got 200 again, which gives us 300 even. So that means our ending inventory is 110. Again, you could take the remaining 5 times 8, and you could take 10 times 7 and get the 110 also. All right, so our last one, what do we do? Weighted average. What's our total cost? 410. We divide it by 50. 410 divided by 50 gives us 8.2, I believe. Yeah, 8.2. All right, and so now we're going to take 8.2 times 35. Which I don't know what that is off the top of my head. I think it's like 287. I don't know if anybody's got a calculator, but I think it's 287. Or you can trust me. And then if that's the case, this is 123. But you can do the same thing here. 287, 123. Now when you do it, they will actually show you, they don't use the cost of goods sold way like I do, taking cost of goods available for sale, 410, and subtracting cost of goods sold. They actually calculate both. I just think it's faster to use the formula and subtract it out than going through and doing both sides. So that's,
So with the weighted average, we did total cost over total units.
Yep.
We got 8.2, and then we multiplied it with 35 that was asking for it.
right, that 35 that we sold.
That gives you cost of goods sold.
Yep, exactly. There's your LIFO, exactly what we did. That shows you your weighted average right there. Here, 8.2. All right, so here's your financial statements that I mentioned. You can see where the cost of goods sold makes an effect on the gross profit. And then they don't point it out in there. I think it's the next slide that they pointed out. Oh. Here you can see the effect on the taxes. So see the difference here? Here we're paying $45 million in taxes. They're paying 36. So it's $9 million difference in taxes. The net income effect difference is almost $21 million. But someone asked me, well, why don't they just always do LIFO? There are some things that don't allow you to do LIFO. Any company that's doing IFRS, you cannot do LIFO, so that's going to be in effect. But you cannot just do LIFO for taxes, for tax purposes, and you can't switch back and forth every year. That's always something people ask too. All right, you have to, if you switch for the way you're doing your inventory, you have to restate financial statements. So it is something you have to stick with. Taxes are such that it is something that you do eventually pay. All you're doing is kind of prolonging it. Instead of paying it now, you're going to eventually pay it. It's not like something you're never going to pay. What do you think is the most commonly used inventory method? FIFO is most commonly used. Does it matter what type of business you run?
Due to inflation,
Huh?
due to inflation, you don't want something that costs more technology.
So, do grocery stores have to use FIFO?
I mean, it makes sense. It's expired.
It makes sense because it expires. And I always ask this question, and I love it because I always ask it and I always get the same answer. And the answer is always yes, they have to use it. And then this is always my same answer. When you go to the grocery store and you buy milk, do you buy the milk in front? Or do you reach around and buy the milk with the longest expiration date? Or do you buy the brown bananas or the green ones with yellow on it? You want the green ones with yellow because they're not quite ripe, right? You don't buy the brown ones that look like crap, right? So can you force people to buy FIFO?
You can't force it, but like they would prefer it.
They definitely would prefer it, but you can't force them.
That's why you put the.
That's why they push it in the front. I used to always buy the milk that was in the back, but now we go through milk so fast that I don't, because I'm like, why? And unless the milk in the front happens to be like 3 days away, because then I don't. But we go through milk now that I'm like, well, I might as well help them out and buy the milk that's going to be drank. But no, you can't force people to buy. The inventory method does not have to go with the company because it doesn't affect anything about what the company's doing, because you can't force people to buy a certain way. Think about stores. They put what they want you to buy and what they think you're going to buy right in front because they want you to come in the store, right? If you've ever noticed a department store, all right, they put the men's items right where the men come in the store because they know you're not going to go looking for it, all right? So they're not going to, women will go find the intimate apparel and they will go find the handbags because they want them. Men are not going to go looking for things, so they have to put it where they know they're going to get it, and it's always by a door. It's not by the door in the middle of the mall because men don't come in from the middle of the mall. Men come in from an exterior door. So it's always by an exterior door. Check that out. The interior door is usually women or home goods. If you ever look, walk into a Macy's or something, look, it's going to be some type of shoes, women apparel that's going to pull the women in. The men are going to be by an exterior door where they can walk in, get it, and walk back out. Yep, because that's how men shop. And there's a lot more things on mannequins for women than men, but that's for you guys. Because men come in and say, I want that, when they're buying stuff for their spouses and girlfriends. Because they don't like to shop that either. They're like, my husband's bought, so he'll say, I'm like, you bought this outfit? He goes, yeah, it looked really good on the mannequin. So I said, can I have that in this size? And she's like, yes. Okay, well, that works. So, all right. Let's go ahead and work a couple problems. As soon as I can get this to